Can you get? Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So this morning we filled the morning with the community report presentation. So this is both papers submitted and videos. We had to squeeze a little bit today so that we could present everything, both all the beautiful videos that people submitted and the papers. So the presentations will only have 10 minutes. Will only be 10 minutes for each paper. And there's no time for questions immediately after the presentation, but at the end of the morning, we'll have the panel discussion where all the presenters will be present, and then both the presenters and the panelists and the audience will have time to ask their questions and bring up subjects for discussion. So that will make up for it. For the first session, we'll start with the on-the-fly video documentary. Then we have a paper presentation from TOPLAP Barcelona, their community report. Then the community report from the Netherlands with the NLCL group. And we'll close this first session with the TOPLAP Karlsruhe video submission. So let's get started with the on-the-fly video.
I think it's just another way to make your stuff, and it helps you to perform in a different way, no? To find different structures because your brain is thinking differently.
Weird. So I was kind of aware of live coding for like a really long time, from like 2007 more or less, but I never did it because I was always like, I can't do live coding, I'm not a good enough coder. Like I just don't, like I sort of had this vision of live coders as like super virtuosic.
Before we were more experimenting with controllers, like Wiimotes were a big thing back then, to like just use these Nintendo game controllers to control some sounds. We really loved this like simplicity of being the computer music performer just with the laptop without any additional MIDI controller and gadgets and everything. Like we had the feeling it is like how computer music should actually also be a bit, like really getting down to the core of what makes a computer, like expressing, writing algorithms or expressing process as code. And yeah, we wanted to experiment with that, and we wanted to see also how far we could push it in a sense.
Well, to me, like, you know, thinking about like how can the laptop be considered an instrument? Because of course, like if you try to study in a conservatory of music, you will always be asked like, okay, what's your musical background? What do you play? And if you say like, I play the laptop, no one will understand that. And you know, the way electronic music has evolved, so if you just think of the laptop, you will have like music software to play with, and sometimes you have interfaces to control the software. But to me, with live coding, it was really the way to actually use the laptop without any peripherals to, you know, convert it or be used as an instrument.
To me, an important part is showing your process. So, and other people might disagree with this, I think, but for me, showing your process and sharing your process with other people is a very core part of it. And so that's why I think I sometimes find community with people working with modular synths or something, because of the kind of like showing your process live to other people. And I think that affects not just how a live performance happens, but also this sort of community building of teaching other people and sharing what you're doing with other people.
And live coding, I think it's about trying new things, trying new possibilities. And of course, if you do that, it might crash at some point. Because this is a machine, because this is experimental, because this is new and it's great, and it's just, well, let's put it back. No, let's recover from the crash. So no, it's not only the crash, it's like how you recover from the crash.
When we share the code in live coding, we are not just sharing some texts and stuff, but we are also sharing our thoughts in a way. So I'm sharing more than us than in other practices maybe. So I think when we share that much, we create this community and this way to do things and to think about things also. So I think that's the main thing with the live coding.
Was because the live coding community cared about diversity, we ended up on like every lineup in the UK for a while, and we were just like, we do not have time to be on every lineup. Like, we need more women to like support a like diverse scene. And so I guess, yeah, that's one aspect of time. But yeah, no, it can be really hard, I think, to deal with those issues. But I guess like on the money front, like almost, I mean, all live coding software is open source. I think like the live coding community kind of evolved out of like ideas around open source software and transparency and making things free and open. So yeah, that's all sort of been inherited from open source aesthetic essentially and brought into the scene.
Things shifted also much more into like the community aspects, and that it is more about doing it and sharing the knowledge and the joy of live coding with each other.
We thought like we just need to start coming together, and start sharing our ideas and become more of a community than just independent artists that sometimes get together and you go like, oh, where do you live? In the Netherlands. Oh, really? Me too.
For me, since I started getting involved with live coding, I've been really impressed with, for example, some of the ideas about not having sort of hierarchies or headliners in events and welcoming newcomers. And so it's something I've been interested in kind of perpetuating as well, of creating, I really like Alex McLean has always organized kind of live streams where anyone can there's a big Google Doc and you can just sign up at which half hour you want to perform, and if there's 100 people participating, then it lasts 100 hours, or if
there's a way or an effort or an idea of the community of trying to incorporate failure, especially in a society in which failure is something that cannot happen.
Everything started with the idea to start connecting the nodes of TOPLAP around Europe. So they came to Angar with the idea of actually internationalizing their projects, let's say. So from there, the collaborative project started, and On the Fly was born, let's say. Like during this year, they really managed to create a community of people that actually not only practice, but sometimes they're also simply interested in seeing, so like the performance.
When we were preparing for the start of this of the On the Fly project, we were kind of bootstrapping this community, live coding community. It was pretty much non-existent in Ljubljana. There wasn't much of a scene. So we would just basically get together regularly and look at one program or one environment together. And it wasn't like a teacher and pupils, but like a bunch of us. None of us had really a good knowledge of a tool, looking together at it, and it made it, I think, much more relaxed and flowing in this sense.
With Iván, you're going to interview him tomorrow. We started actually the idea of making the On the Fly project with him. So it was like a wish list about live coding, how we as performers or as we wanted to know more about live coding and have like a more intense exchanges between the communities and something like that. So we started to think about how to do that, and then we want to make some research and have the time and the money to put the people that have these amazing ideas and they will have all the time to do that and stuff. And also we want to get some public, actually, no? Like we don't want to be just like a few nerds doing stuff, but we want to share our things also.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, it was the idea to bring to another level like the notes and make the live coding more visible also to a broader audience, let's say.
Now we have the chance to bring even the youngest people in contact with coding. And our point is that basically coding is media literacy for the 21st century. So we actually believe that if people would like to make a bigger impact in the future, they actually need to learn how to code and how to program, because otherwise their roles might actually be reduced to mere consumerism.
There are all these systems, algorithmic systems, timelines that we are using every day. And on school, you learn maybe once how to build something with wood or maybe do some math, but you're not, well, of course, back when I was at school, you're not getting taught how to make an algorithm. And when they do get taught to make an algorithm, it's often with the goal of making something functional instead of making something playful. And so creative coding or live coding, the goal is not to make something functional, it's to make something expressive and to play around with it.
Live coding is, first of all, instantaneous. It comes to life in the moment. And this basically means that all kinds of things can actually go wrong. And this is what I personally embrace, because I think that also creative potentials can actually derive from those very small failures and things which potentially go wrong. And this is what I really appreciate.
And well, I also find that basically not just live coding, but in general, coding sound and visuals is a very good way to teach coding. Because again, there is not like doing some math or some other problem. There's the code can work correctly or incorrectly. And here, it's correct if you like what comes out, and it's incorrect if you don't.
The tools have evolved. I mean, back in 2007, we were using like Super Collider with Hoogland with JITLib to do everything. So there was not, or like what is now known as tidal cycles, was still like very much a prototype in Alex McLean's like hard drive, I guess. I don't know for sure if it was like in what state it was, but it was not the tool that it is now that is like really like this go-to live coding platform. We used Super Collider, which is of course very focused on sound synthesis, not so much focusing on like playing events or like defining patterns as tidal cycles is. And so yeah, we were like on the one hand we were really like free, and we wanted to also be really free, like doing this free improvisation noise. But then we were also interested in doing like the opposite, because live coding at that point was very much this very free experimental like sound collages that were happening, or very conceptual. But then we were also trying to do, hey, can we like have a shared harmonic progression, or let's do some beats, can we do that also? And then of course like something like tidal cycles is now very much better, much more approachable for this tool, but we had then to find our own solutions to do it, which is also interesting, and probably changes also the result in the end, because tools are always changing the output, or tools are always very much informing even how you think about the process or the problem or the result that you actually want to achieve.
When I started live coding, I was very much I'd spent some time at a department that was very electroacoustically focused, doing my master's, and I guess that was kind of like my electronic music world, and I was very interested in experimental music and noise music, essentially. And then when I started live coding, I got into this phase where I was just like testing out live coding in like loads of different contexts. So I was like live coding at noise shows, live coding with jazz musicians, like playing algorithms, and I was just like really interested in how you can kind of morph the forms through code, like across all those different contexts. So yeah, Algorave for me was like, hey, how do I turn noise music into something that people want to dance to? So there was this like experimentation across a lot of algorithms with like, yeah, I guess going from this like very experimental noise aesthetic to, you know, like quantizing that, and then like how do you actually get people to dance to that, and like what adjustments do you need to make? So yeah, I really enjoyed that process actually. But
clap your hands, you know, or where do people come from? Say the country you come from, and then, you know, you can start extending the sound output of what you do, because the textual instructions that you type on the computer don't necessarily have to affect the computer or be interpreted by the computer, can be interpreted by anyone reading. So you can use that idea to really extend the output, the sonic output, or even the conceptual output of live coding. But like with this specific project, the Code Clavier, like I really take my hands off, and it's all up to Anne. So, you know, she's deciding what she's coding, she's deciding the algorithm, and the way she's playing, it's also modifying the algorithm.
At the beginning, I like to write just maybe a line or something that starts the thing, and then there's not just this annoying silence for a few minutes that sometimes happens in a performance in live coding. So I like to solve that thing first, and then I depend on the performance, and also I think it helps me to think, because I want to think or remember a function or something like I want to run, but I have something to move, so it helps me. So I used to perform with my guitar, and I have another project just using all this and modular synthesizers and stuff. So I like to use those things also when I perform with live coding.
Also, like, I mean, Iván and me just wrote a paper on live coding and machine learning, and we were like specifically like picking out that there's like such a different ethos in those two technical spheres, which makes it really tricky to combine them. But then maybe there's something interesting in those frictions, like, you know, if you're gonna like live train a model, what does your model have to look like? How do you have to adjust the machine learning technology to fit within the live coding frame. And if you want to like take the like full transparency live coding ethos, yet you're working with black boxes. Like, yeah, it's just really tricky. And we ended up with a lot of questions and not very many answers yet. So yeah, I think it's definitely like a really interesting area of research right now. It's like, what does live machine learning look like?
AI or machine learning can offer to live coding, and also the other way around, because if you look at the practice, within live coding practice with specific requirements, necessities, ways of doing, that also influences, for example, the development of algorithms oriented to small data, oriented, for example, to be more, to have parameters that allowed you actually to be more expressive.
And then more specifically with Hydra, I really do work with this idea as functional programming, as representing a set of pieces of code or modules that can be put together in different ways. And so I find them to be very related in terms of that you're kind of representing how an audio or a visual signal flows through a system. You can live patch things together, and it's sort of this ongoing process where there's not a, like, it doesn't work or it doesn't work. It kind of makes something that you're interested in expressing, or it makes something that you're not interested in expressing.
From scratch sessions, they are something rather unique in the field of live coding, as for my opinion. Basically, staring in front of a complete empty tableau and then letting the creative spirits actually act.
This feeling of always coming on stage with this like fresh feeling of like, this could go horribly wrong. But I mean, that's also because of the way that I live code, because I almost always start blank slate, so without any code written. And it's a free improvisation from there. And so there's all, like, the possibility space is large and the possibility to fail is quite large. But I really enjoy that way of live coding.
Probably live coding is more, I think you could say that you interface with the computer. Before I used to think you have to use text, but not anymore, you know? And you are having like an output that's mostly artistic, and the importance is more in the process, like how you're making it, than the end result.
And I also see how Alcaraz has kind of changed the scene in a lot of ways as well, because when you go into a dance music context, it's very different to an experimental music context, and people expect to dance at least on some level. Like, even if they know it's a live coding show and some things can go wrong, you still expect dance music. And so I kind of see how over the 10 years, like, production values have got a bit better in live coding, and I would largely put that down to Alcaraz, and also people who are coming in maybe from more dance music backgrounds as well, and bringing that aesthetic in. So yeah, I feel like there's actually getting less space to fail in live coding rather than more. But yeah, maybe that's interesting as well.
And in, let's say, technical stuff, coding, artistic practice, like everything, trying things that don't work is part of the research process, of every research process, but it's not reported. So I think, or I feel that that failure is what can actually be presented without any troubles within the live coding practice, and it's something that is, I don't know, also liberating.
But live coding, I mean, what is live coding? I mean, live coding can be so many things. And I think that the interesting part is we don't know yet where the actual boundaries are.
All right. This was the on-the-fly community report video submission. Now I'd like to invite Iván and Lina to present the TOPLAP Barcelona. Yes. Can I just go?
Tengo ya mi... No, bueno, sí. Can you see the screen? I'm right there. This one? Maybe the other one? Can try this one. Ah, yeah, sure. No, it's not working. ¿Tú lo tienes ahí? ¿Tú lo tienes ahí? Por si no, ¿YouTube? That's weird. Yeah, I already tried that one. Another one? No sé si quiero. Jope. ¿Qué hago? ¿Reinicio? Qué raro, tío. Es que no reconoce nada. ¿Qué? Que necesito las notes.
¿Aquí las tienes? No.
Sí, necesitas ponerle vista de... ¿No? ¿Quieres mi computadora? Tengo esa de Iván. Pues solo hay que darle a esa.
¿Aquí tienes las notes?
No. Vale, probemos este. We can try with this computer also. Let's see. Because it's, you have HDMI?
Sí.
That's weird, huh?
Ja, dat is...
What is my
er komt
computer?
nu een andere laptop aan.
I will restart my computer. Entonces, puedes poner estas en la pantalla de Zoom y abrir el Telegram chat.
¿Esto es lo que quieres que ponga ya?
Sí.
Las notes aquí. ponerla en grande, ¿no? Vale, aquí. Vale, pero entonces, ¿qué tienes que ponerle aquí?
Que lo pases, pásalo a la otra pantalla.
Pero necesito hacerlo en grande, ¿no? ¿Y dónde están tus notas?
No sé.
Este le voy a hacer un reload.
Sí, dale. I can start talking while we figure out how to put all together. So this is people from Barcelona and around here also saying hi to everyone. So hello everyone. So yeah, I think I can start talking about the community report. Can you show that? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I want to start talking about all the roots in Barcelona. So yeah, Barcelona has a big tradition in computer music and experimental music inside the academic field, but also outside. So for example, associations like, I don't know, Gracia Territorio Sonor or Lulsec or Hangar, and also collectives like Super Collider Meeting Group and the Laptop Orchestra and so on, have been like the roots for the community, I think. So for example, in 2011 or something, we had some Super Collider workshops there, and also I guess the first ever Tidal Cycles workshop was in Barcelona, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I was there. So I was very engaged with the live coding in 2013, also because I personally went to the Live Code Fest in Karlsruhe, but this is another story. So I made this first algorithm in 2013. I guess Shelly Knotts was there and more people there. But I was alone, so I lost interest, so I didn't do any more stuff until 2016, when I met Iván Paz, and then we did that other two algorithms. I guess that were the same year, no? And also Niklas arrived, so yeah, we started like a community with 3 people. And an interesting thing that happened there in that algorithm was that some of the local people didn't show up at the end, and some of them are here. I won't say names, but we didn't blame it because it was like you never live code live with people, with public, and then you have to go to an algorithm and with a flyer and with actual public and so on. So it was difficult. So we realized that we needed a safe space to practice, no? So I guess that's why in 2018 we decided to present the live coding community as a project in Hangar, which is a production center in Barcelona. And they said, yes, we just, we were 3, but we promised to be more people at the end. So we started to do a lot of things, actually. We had the residency for 4 years. So we had the space to do whatever we wanted. No money at all, actually, but we had a lot of equipment and a venue and so on. So we started to make this from scratch sessions, thanks to Iván, that he came from the Mexican scene. So they had this idea of the from scratch session, so 9 minutes. So you have 9 minutes to perform from scratch, and then everyone in the public has to clap. That we included that rule for the public also. So at the end, everyone must clap. So yeah, it was like a safe space, and we are still doing that because it's a good place to present things, try new things, and also for new beginners to try stuff and so on. So and have some beers, no? That is all about at the end. We also have done this View Festival. The first one was like a satellite event of the ICLC in Madrid. We don't have a poster of the first one, but we have the others. And that last one is going to happen next week. So it's like a whole week of concerts and workshops and presentations and so on. what else? Then we have La Hora del LiveCoder was something that we did in during the pandemic. We decided to make once a day a concert about one member of the community, and I guess that was intense, but you know, we're the pandemic, so we were actually it helps us a lot to hear the others. So we had like 1 hour just listen what the other was doing. So it was very fun, and also it joins us as a community. So we also, after that, we made this Down the Rabbit Hole. This is a compilation. I guess we have some copies there, no? If you want some. So yeah, it was a huge effort for everyone. We have music for different members of the community, but also the design has been made by Sidlali and Roger. What else? We also have the Truadas. We haven't done more, but maybe in the future, let's see. It's like the evolution of the live coding hour, the La Hora del LiveCoder, but in person. So it's a demo and also an explanation of the work of 1 or 2 people in the community. What else? We have TOPLAP Radio. So we have once a month TOPLAP in toplap.org, I guess. Yes. TOPLAP, yes, it's an online radio, so we have once a month this TOPLAP radio, and we put live coding music from all parts in the world. So if you want to appear, just let us know. And also on the fly, but you already saw the video, or you can take a look. This is history. It started in the community with Iván and I thinking how we can expand this idea of the community and in some other parts of the world. No, we knew that some other people were doing things, and we just wanted to be together. So yeah, now the residency in Angar is over, so we are just like grown-up people. So we kind of have our own space now, not only to make live coding, we also sharing the space to make more things, but we already know that we need this space to share things, and also this is not only a physical space, it's just like the community is stable now. So I guess it's not only me or only Iván doing things, it's all the members of the community wants to make things, and we are like together with another institutions and some other places doing live coding. So I guess that's the thing for now. Do you want to say something? Run! I don't know how many times do we have, like 2 minutes? Yeah.
But I don't know how to change just press share slide, okay. So just 3 minutes to share some crazy thoughts about TOPLAP Barcelona. So to me, what it is, first, it is a space to meet and to listen to each other. I think listening to each other is really important. It is something that we practice in community, where getting together is more important than the result, but it's also a space for learning. So these learning spaces, we can learn from each other, to have a beer, we already said that. There is also a sense of identity, because we know we can do more things as a community, and it has become a structure to hack the system. And what do I mean by hacking the system is that we are being able to play in big festivals in Barcelona, to get money from some funding that otherwise, as independent artists, we couldn't make it in that way. So we have, as a community, we make a lot of noise, and people think that we are doing interesting things, I don't know. And then we have like hacked the system in that way, so we have some visibility because we are more than only one artist doing its own stuff. Then it's also a space to create a space where we can create our own relationship and rules, because we are already visible, so we can. And how we did get here to this point. So we have been reflecting on that, and we think that it's not the first person, but the second person and maybe the third person that makes a community. So it's not about only one people doing stuff, but it's the rest of the people. It is important that everyone has its moment. For example, Lina was saying in La Hora del LiveCoder, everyone has its space to say, to play for 1 hour, and we were there. no matter what happened at the end. It's important to keep the rhythm, so we have one session every month, this from scratch session that is just too small to have a beer, but it's happening, and people know that the last Thursday of each month we have that from scratch session. And of course, to have a beer and to have fun, basically. Thank you.
All right, now Saskia and Timo will now present the NLCL community report.
I guess so. Do we need this? Let's see. And the cable is hopefully working. Let's see. Don't show my email. This is the paper. I'm not sure if that one. This one is working. Look at that. But
hello.
I'll just do it like this, I think. Shall we also click on slideshow?
Yes. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, welcome.
Welcome. We're happy to present the paper of the Netherlands Coding Live community report. We will be quickly going through all the slides because we only have 10 minutes.
Exactly. Let me also check my time. Okay.
So I think we wanted to show like the community. Well, a lot of people are in the community, live coders and organizers as well. I think if you're in the Netherlands and you do something with live coding, you're part of the community already. So
yeah, we consider your name already written there, I think.
Yes,
although you can decline if you want, of course. I think one nice thing to note is that because the Netherlands is a small country, we don't really have a community for different cities, like TOPLAP Barcelona, for example. So yeah, it's kind of like spread out throughout the Netherlands, although more located in the near the coast, like Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Den Haag, Utrecht, of course, where we are now. All right, so where did it start? The first meetup was in 2018 at STIM. I guess most of you will know about STIM, which was an institute in Amsterdam for electronic music and instrument building. A lot of cool things happened there. And in 2018 there was a meetup. We were both not present there yet. We came in a bit later. But as you can maybe tell, this is Marije, live coding, and this is Anne Weinberg from the Codeklavier, the pianist. And I think this is Felipe, Ignacio Noriega. And the meetup was made for people to help overcome the fear of the unknown, to experiment and feel together collectively. And during the meetup, we kind of set up 2 rules. Like every newcomer that comes in has to live code at least something. So we had meetups where we just set up laptops and kind of people just passed on code to each other. And then you just write one line, evaluate, and then move on. So at least you typed something. And the other rule was, at the end of every meetup, we pick a date for the next one, so that we keep the meetups coming. Although more on that later.
In 2019 there were monthly meetups, and that moved to online meetups during the pandemic. And once again, like the most meetups were in the Randstad, The Hague, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Utrecht. But also try to go a bit further, like Eindhoven. Yeah. Part of the community also created events, like on their own, like little bubbles of events. One of the events were organized by Joana and Chicau, algorithms, and she also tried to do different formats of these events, having a QA session or having performances with the jam session. Also what really worked was having a workshop prior to the evening, so also people that doing the workshop, they can also join on stage that night. With Creative Coding Utrecht, so yesterday we were in the Echo in the evening, and in 2018 we organized an Algorave as well there, together with HQ and Uncloud. But also prior to that and during that time, a lot of code jams after our meetups, just meetups that were generally not only on live coding, but we also ended up having a little bit of playtime and doing this from scratch sessions, like in 6 minutes. You can see Timo and Caroline here, and I think Timo was also one that really pushed a lot of people to try out and jam, including me. So yeah. It helps to like push everyone to just try it out. Yes?
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to add that I thought it was nice to start these live coding from scratch sessions to kind of get everybody introduced to the live coding scene. And since at that time, there was one Algorave in 2014 in Amsterdam. I missed that, sadly, but yeah, it is what it is. But so between 2014 and 18, nothing really happened on the topic of live coding. So, and then I got in touch with it, and then I thought it would be nice to kind of push it a bit more. So I met with Fabian, and I asked, can I organize some code jams after the meetups? So, yeah.
There were also a few events. What is interesting that we always try to, well, we try to look at different kind of events or places where we can do something. So next week on Friday, we also have a Registers of Code in the Orgelpark. And we did, for example, something together with Urban Dance on the square here in Utrecht. So finding like ways to connect with other disciplines, find interesting to for that.
Yeah, and other cultures, of course, because during the Urban Dance event, there was, well, you can see here, it is Panda Suicide. Maybe some of you are familiar with Panda Suicide. Okay. But there were also dancers at that event, and they had also this dance contest called Crumping, which is also kind of like an improvisational dance, and it's like a competition and a battle. And to kind of like counteract that, we had a Shader Showdown, which is also kind of a battle, but in live coding. So we were looking at ways to combine these different cultures and disciplines into one bigger event, which I think was very cool.
So during the pandemic, Timo, Annelinde, and Fabian started to do the behind of the screens to let live coders create a video of 10 minutes to showcase their work, but also included an interview about their practice. The first season was mostly from the NLCL community, and 2 seasons, the second and the third. I think we have a third season, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Also included a bigger community of worldwide live coders, so you can still read them and see all the videos. Also, Creative Coding Utrecht tries to embed live coding into schools in some way, fun way. What we notice is with live coding, for example, here you can see Hydra. It's really easy for students to see right away what they are doing and fun, and also using like features as a webcam already helps to make young students really enthusiastic about, oh, what's this? And another way to see coding as a creative practice.
I think we only have like 2 minutes left now, so we really have to move. But the nice thing is there is actually a paper, of course, so you can read everything in more detail later if you would like. So, besides Creative Coding Utrecht, there are all these other institutes and places where live coding events are happening, like at III, the Instrument Inventors Initiative in The Hague, which organized 4 live coding concerts, curated by Felipe, Joana, me also, and Rafaele. And then there's live coding sessions, which Saskia organizes.
Yeah, together with Klasien and Sabrina, and we have this nice venue in Amsterdam, what we can use and really have a space to perform and meet each other in the community. And also the space really helps to have abroad people that are interested in experimental things coming to that place.
And then, of course, there's the Sonology, the Institute of Sonology in The Hague that does many things with coding or live coding, like teaching Super Collider. I think maybe we need to skip a few slides.
On the fly, we already done that.
This
so
exactly, yeah.
I think also interesting and also part of the paper is that there's a lot of research in the community. Rafaele does a lot with her work, and of course Timo also with Mercury.
And of course Marije, who wrote this amazing book, which apparently was already sold out on the first day when she brought some over. I think it's a good time to move to some reflection. So, as mentioned, like in the beginning of the presentation, we had this rule that we would set up a new meeting after the end of every other meeting. But this kind of, failed during the pandemic mostly. And now after the pandemic, we're having a bit of a hard time getting the meetups up and running. I mean, we have these amazing events. We have the ICLC, we organize algorithms and things like that, but like a monthly meetup where we just gather and discuss things or show each other some work that we've been working on, that kind of hasn't happened lately. Some other issues that keep coming up during meetups, of course, is the gender balance. It is still mostly male-dominated. Which of course we are really hoping to make more diverse. And of course during concerts we really try to, I can't force people to come to the meetup, so apparently what happens is still mostly male men join. Some other interesting thing during the concerts is that we do have a gender balance, but it is kind of split between that a lot of female participants do visuals and a lot of male participants do music. So although the balance is kind of equal on stage in total between the different disciplines, there is still a lot of shift towards music for men and then visuals for women. So we really need to try and fix that as well. I think we need to round up.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
We try also to fix it by trying to have workshops and open it up, and also other disciplines connecting.
Exactly. So I guess that is also kind of the conclusion where we're going towards, that as a community we are kind of like individuals working together with all these institutes and foundations like Creative Coding Utrecht, III, etc. Which really helps to get funding and create cool events. And then we can use the meetups as a safe space for exploration. And we can really try to use workshops and education to foster the community and hopefully make it better and more awesome in the future. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. We were meant to have the TOPLAP Karlsruhe video now, but we have a break, and we scheduled a group photo for this break, so we don't want to skip it, so that we get a nice photo. So what I propose is that we do the break, we come back at the planned time at 11:15. We do the schedule as it was, except that we do the Karlsruhe video just before the panel. So the panel will be slightly shorter, but we'll get to do everything still. All right, so we're back at 11:15. Thanks, everyone. Hello? Yeah. All right. We're resuming our session, starting with a video submitted by Melody Loveless, the reflection on LiveCode.NYC. Then we have a community report paper presented by Sumant Srinivasan, also about the community in New York. After that, we have a written community report from the AV Club in San Francisco. Sorry, that's a video. Then we have the LiveCode presentation about their community report. Then we'll have the TOPLAP Karlsruhe video that was postponed from the first session, and we wrap it up with a panel discussion. So let's get started with the first video.
Okay, so it works. Hello. Today I'm going to talk about the physical and cultural infrastructure that supports LiveCode.NYC. I think I decided to focus on this aspect of the community as opposed to actual people and the narratives around it, because there are so many smart and kind people whose effort has gone into building this community, and if I start naming names, it's going to take all day. It's just not the most sustainable way of approaching it. So let's go ahead. Before I start, my name is Sumant. I am a software engineer and a musician. I grew up in New York. Sorry, I grew up in India and then moved to New York. I also did a lot of growing up in New York. But yeah, I've been a part of LiveCode.NYC for close to 6 years now. And I was not there at the beginning, but I've done a little bit of detective work and gotten quite a bit of information. So LiveCode.NYC is a New York City-based collective that gathers to discuss live coding, and promote it, and sort of create spaces where we can perform, build new tools, and talk about it and exchange ideas. And we have people from a variety of different backgrounds. We have writers and filmmakers, game developers, designers and engineers, and also musicians, as you would expect. And this kind of varied background also brings a very different, a huge gamut of styles and aesthetics and tastes. And it's interesting to see that kind of unfold in performances and also in person. It was really funny the other day when, I forget the name of the presenter, but then someone did an analysis of several Agrave sessions. And so the names I've highlighted up here are LiveCode.NYC performers. And it's absolutely wild to see the difference between, just the different sets and the dynamics between their performances. And I think that's very reflective of how varied performances can tend to be. And behind this sort of varying performance aesthetics is also a wide variety of tools. People in New York have often built tools for very specific performances. We've had sort of this meta version of from scratch where people built a specific tool for a specific performance and then never showed up with it again. LiveCode.NYC principally operates via meetups. The first ever event, so to speak, at LiveCode.NYC was a meetup at Kate Sikia's apartment. Since then, we've moved on to meet at several different places. We briefly met up at one of the labs at NYU, and then we've also met up in co-working spaces, art studios, parks, and we currently have settled into the Brooklyn Public Library, which is fairly central within Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn has kind of become the de facto place for artists, emerging artists and independent artists in New York, because even though Manhattan has such a cultural sort of gravity to it, it's very much saturated by legacy institutions. You have big universities and galleries and artistic institutions that have existed for several decades, that it's really difficult to build something from the ground up without affiliating with these organizations. In contrast, Brooklyn is a better home for new forms of organizing communities and also for new art forms to emerge. And so naturally, you have a lot of artists moving in there, collaborating. You have new recording studios, new labels, new print studios coming up. And also rent is pretty cheap in Brooklyn compared to Manhattan. Quite expensive on a global standard, but yeah, if you're in New York, Brooklyn's better. So this is where we meet up. Also, before the pandemic, we had, we still have a mailing list. That used to be the primary mode of communication, and that's how we would coordinate. We would just send each other emails. But then during the pandemic, it became obvious that we needed a better way of communicating, and that's when we started a Discord server. And that has become sort of a centerpiece for how we coordinate these days. And it's also made a lot of our internal communication and structure very apparent. LiveCode.NYC also operates on a quasi-anarchist model where like no single person holds all the power, and like anybody can get up and organize a show or a workshop or an event or anything, as long as they are doing their best to be equitable about it. And so being on Discord, watching people just volunteer, organize things, and go ahead with it has been a very empowering thing to watch. New York City is pretty big, so it can support several scenes and art forms to just exist and like occasionally overlap. And LiveCode.NYC is no exception to that. So like there are several people in the collective that overlap with other scenes. Like, you know, there's several musicians are also a part of the Modular Synth Society. Many of the people that are part of the collective have either taught or have studied at NYU, so we have a sort of loose affiliation with them. We've also collaborated with some of the more legacy arts institutions in Manhattan. For example, HarvestWorks is a good example. They're a digital arts institution, and in fact, we're doing an event with them next month in New York. There's also Flux Factory, with whom we organized a series of workshops and an Algo Club event. And we also had installations as part of that. In fact, the video that got played before my presentation was partially built from material from there. And besides other scenes in New York, we also frequently collaborate with scenes in other cities. So we have had people from Richmond, Virginia play pretty often, partially because KCQ exists in both of the scenes. And several people in the San Francisco scene regularly play in New York and vice versa. We've been incredibly prolific with shows more recently. And this is in part due to the fact that we have Discord post-pandemic, but also the pandemic kind of caused a cultural reset, interestingly, in that a lot of the older cohort of venues kind of faded away. A whole generation of people kind of either left New York City or like moved on to other things, and this allowed a fresh generation of people and venues to come together and collaborate and build a new scene. Most of these events took place in the last 12 months or more recently, and there are several more. We don't make a lot of money live coding yet, and not enough to sustain ourselves just doing that. Several people, most of us have something else that helps us sustain ourselves. But I remember yesterday at Alejandro's talk, there was a very resonant quote about like what happens to artists that are neither aligned with market forces or with social systems. And like that was a very, very resonant line, because that pretty much describes what LiveCode.NYC is. Like, we don't really depend on academic grants. We don't have government grants or any sort of external funding. It's mostly us trying to invest in each other and in the community and try our best to create events that kind of can pay for themselves. So as part of this, I kind of wanted to give a high-level view of a couple of events that we organized and just how much we make, where all that money comes from, and where it goes. So the comparison that I wanted to make was between Noise Function that happened last September and Algo Gaze, Algo Rave that happened in June. So for Noise Function, we had access to a venue called Littlefield, which is fairly large and it's in many ways similar to what Echo looked like last night. It's a fairly big venue, professional backline, great equipment, great sound. And it was a delight as a performer to play there. But on the flip side, they're also a professional venue that like works on the economy of show business in New York. So if you want to book it, you have to pay a pretty significant fee up front and promise them a certain number of attendees. And that can kind of be a sort of intangible pressure on a niche group like LiveCode.NYC. So yeah, so it was interesting to see that we somehow managed it, but then having this kind of pressure show up in organizing of shows can influence the kind of artists that get to play. In contrast, we had Algo Rave at Wonderville, which is a lot more DIY venue, and we have a lot more creative control and financial freedom, but at the same time, it's a DIY venue, so there's that element of chaos that kind of influence the kind of performances we have. in terms of future, I really want to leave you with this meme, because this got shared around on the Discord about a few months ago, and it was a joke, but this is increasingly becoming reality because LiveCode.NYC has grown so much, and we're incredibly prolific at this point. And so I'm starting to see a divergence in terms of artistic goals and visions and what people want to do. And so my kind of loose prediction is that over the next year or two, LiveCode.NYC will be less of a collective of individuals and more a federation of smaller collectives and organizations that have their own artistic goals and aesthetics and visions, and that can like tap into this common space, a common hub, so to speak. Yeah, I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to leave you with this. Yeah, if you want to get into more detail, there's a paper. Feel free to read that. But yeah, thank you to LiveCode.NYC. Thank you to all of you.
All right, the video submission from AV Club San Francisco.
Cool. This is Dan Grelick reporting live from Utrecht, talking a little bit about what AV Club is. So AV Club, the A is audio, the V is visual, so Audio Visual Club San Francisco. And while we are based in San Francisco, we also have shows and have community around the Bay Area. So this includes Oakland, it includes San Jose, pretty much what you may have heard of Silicon Valley. And we started about 2 years ago, and before AV Club started, there was some community who was interested in live coding. One of the main folks who I want to highlight is Thorsten Sideboard. And Thorsten organizes the Algorithmic Art Assembly, which some of you may have heard at or have spoken at. Here are some photos of that from 2022. So what are we and what do we do? So AV Club is, we have a meetup every 2 weeks, which is a lot of effort. Rodney has been holding that down. And it's a space where people can come gather and talk about code, things like that. And we also have workshops. We're just starting a speaker series that we're trying to do every other month or so. And then our focus is definitely on performances, trying to share with the community what is live coding, what is live audiovisual performances. So we have a lot of combination and crossover, intersectionality, where the shows also involve folks who are using more live patching tools, things like Touch Designer. We have folks using modular synthesizers. We have live instrumentalists, And we also have a lot of folks making custom-built tools where they can use different expressive gestures or use different MIDI inputs or different rules to make live visuals. So oftentimes in our shows, we'll just have this really cool combination of live coding plus some other custom-built technologies that people are using, which is really fun. Here we have Kyle, Igo, and we have Mark, Flip Your Bits, performing at Syzygy. And this is a performance where both of them had not performed before, and this was their first performance, which we're really excited about. And the visuals are actually made with Cellular Automata. And on the top left, you see the rules for the game of life. Here we have Santi making GLSL code. And then we also have Celeste Betancourt making the visuals, making the music with her own programming language that's based on Chuck. This was a lot of fun. This was in March 2023. And here is at Gray Area, we actually have Thorsten sideboard and Kay sideboard performing together. On the right side, we have Thorsten's custom library called Sideboard, and we have Hydra on the left. And here at the same night, we have Olivia Jack performing with her own tool Hydra. And then again, we have Celeste performing with her custom tool that's built on top of Chuck. We put a lot of effort and energy into the documentation, trying to have the screens recorded so we can create these videos where you can really see the whole process and everything that's going into what's happening. And this is Idea Unsound performing with Isorhythmics. Isorhythmics has their custom video synth that they've created with hardware, and this is some of the footage from that they're mixing with Max MSP. And on the bottom left, you see Chris's Ableton live code, which is a kind of form of title cycles that talks directly to Ableton. And we also have different shows that we're booked for around the Bay Area. This is Sophia Sanborn with Rodney Foles on the right. And Sophia is crushing it with title cycles. This is myself, Dan Garlic, performing, doing the live audio and visuals. And again, you can see the visuals are kind of overlaid on top of the screen. We like to do a lot of the screen recording stuff. And here is our Tyler, performing with title cycles. Tyler actually records his MIDI in, and then you can see these long blocks of code where the MIDI is being performed live. And I want to talk a little bit about what's happening now with a combination between AV Club and LiveCode.NYC. Here we have a show in Brooklyn where we have our Tyler performing with Viola Sandpills. And Tyler actually flew out for this show, And we had a couple other folks also visiting, myself included. We're creating more opportunities to have folks from the different coasts, from the different parts of the country to perform together and create this unified kind of live code collective. This is at a show that we called Club Code. And also at that show, we were able to have C. Robo, Will, and Roxanne, also known as Rox, performing. This is a really fun part of the night. And we'll get to see both of them performing at this very conference. So that was a little bit of an overview of what's happening with AV Club, but also more broadly what's happening in the United States. So I'm excited to see where it goes. And this weekend we'll see some performances as well by folks in both scenes.
All right, now we have the presentation by LiveCode.NYC with Shelly Notes and Joana, Chicau.
Does HDMI work for you? Sorry? Do I do mine? Either way. No, that's just yours.
Can you grab the cable?
Yes. So where do we place them? Yeah, we can just put it there or something. Or is it? Oh, yeah, you're right.
Should I start? Yeah, okay. Do you want to do the time? So tell me to stop in 10. Yeah. So tell me to stop in 5 minutes. Okay, cool. Hi, we're Shelly and Joana, and we're presenting the LiveCode.NYC community report. Yeah, there's a lot more women in the community, but the report that's in the conference proceedings is written by the two of us, plus Alicia Champlin, Mickey Corfile, Mina Marie, Iris Saladino, and Anna Shambo. Yeah, the LiveCode.NYC community is quite a young community, so we started a little bit over a year ago because we wanted to organize an event for International Women's Day on the 8th of March 2022. And since then, we've sort of become an online community of women live coders, which is mostly organized around a Telegram group. And we started as a way to sort of recognize and give visibility to live coders who identify as women, and to create a space for us to gather, recognize solidarity, and share experiences with each other. The community aligns itself with intersectional feminism, and we're inclusive to trans femme and non-binary people, and people who experience gender-based discrimination. And after the March 2022 event, there was a desire to continue with the group and solidify on this solidarity feelings that were generated through that event. So that's sort of how we started and how we've continued. Yeah, this is the website from March 2022, which is still there and has some useful links in it. So the Telegram group, I should check this number, but last time I checked, there was 48 members in the group. And there's also a Discord channel with 27 members. And yeah, the links to this are on the website. So if you are a women identifying live coder and you would like to join us, you're extremely welcome to. And we would be happy to see you in the group. So we have a pretty bottom-up approach to organization. So it's purposely horizontal, fluid, and organic, and sort of moves with the natural flow of the group. And as I think I already said, we're primarily a sort of solidarity group rather than an action group. So we don't really have any, we're also quite young, so we don't really have any specific goal statements at the minute. But lots of members in the group are very proactive in organizing relevant activities around women in live coding outside of the group and in their sort of local communities, including workshops, talks, and performances, which sort of, as a byproduct, raise awareness of women live coders and sometimes even directly the existence and the mission of the LiveCode.NYC group. So the reason we're organized this way is because we figured that having a group that doesn't require too much time commitment or doesn't have any specific barrier to entry is a bit more accessible and flexible and maybe more sustainable and realistic in the long run. So we're not really placing any demands on group members. We're just providing a center point to gather and regroup whilst we're also navigating busy and demanding schedules in other places and other domains. Yeah, the channels that we do have are used for organization of the events that we have done, and also sharing events that we've been involved in outside of the group, and also supporting each other. So it's very sort of asynchronous meeting point for discussion and sharing. I know there's been some posts on the group this week of performances by women at ICLC. So yeah, it's a nice place to sort of share those things. And we also started a list of profiles on GitHub, but that's a work in progress, which we're hoping to keep adding to. So how much time do I have? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, okay, cool. So just to sort of say a little bit about like why a women identifying live coding group. I mean, hopefully this isn't a room where I really have to justify that too. But just to say a bit more, there's sort of continuous evidence about how women are still a minority group in music technology field. So in some related music tech conferences, the NIME conference between 2011 and 2017 had 14% women authors, and the ICMA, so the International Computer Music Association, and the Audio Engineering Societies have 14 to 19% women membership, so we are still very much in a minority. And there's also evidence around how generating awareness and visibility of women's work in music tech and publishing statistics about gender imbalance has become a really useful tool for tackling and responding to that problem. So as an example, Female Pressure are a group who collects statistics on gender balances in music event lineups. And their survey, they've been doing surveys since 2013 to the present. And in that time, the number of women on lineups has increased from 9% to 26%, partly as a result of that work in raising awareness around how underrepresented women are. And it also, this is a really nice example to show that this work takes a lot of time and perseverance to actually make change. And yeah, as LiveCode.NYC, we haven't done any statistical figures at this point, but it's probably a future goal of the group to sort of work out you know, how many women are live coding, like, and how can we improve gender diversity. And yeah, beyond those sort of statistical things, I think there's also some interesting perspectives around how gender diversity expands practices. So Joana Armitage and Helen Thornham published a paper in 2021 which discussed the importance of acknowledging the values brought by women live coders in the live coding practice, such as failure, slowness, and embodiment, as a sort of counterpoint to normatively masculine view, emphasizing and emphasizing and fetishizing code or software. Yeah, it's also really helpful to have necessary to have a space, a safe, oh God, I'm totally lost the ability to speak, a safe space to help the group members develop individual voices without the risk of being overshadowed by a male-dominated group.
Thank you. So we're just gonna show now some examples of things we've done together. The first event was during the International Women's Day in 2022, and so while a lot of the community papers are connected to a geographic space, LiveCode.NYC is mostly spread all over the place, all over the world, and so we've been doing a lot of things online. So this is one example of a talk we had over Jitsi that we streamed onto the YouTube channel. That I believe probably the same one as we are now connecting to. And we also had a Mozilla Hubs where we had some people's work there as well for the period of about 24 hours. And it was also for this event that Flor did the amazing sketch that you can see here using Hydra, and I helped with, I guess, some of the text that was there and the website part of it as well. So it's good to have this momentum basically, and to sort of produce things that then can stay afterwards as well. This is this is Hydra, and it's adapted from Linz Randolph's 1999 painting Cyborg, used in Donna Haraway's book cover, Cyborgs and Woman, the Reinvention of Nature. So quite a nice reference there. It's also, it's Hydra and P5.js actually that you're seeing there. So that was 2022. We also, this year, 2023, we also tried and do different things. I guess, yeah, what I think is interesting is that we changed the format this year. We had this jam session in estuary, and then we also had, for example, this is what you're looking at, is LiveCode.NYC Barcelona, who did an actual sort of gathering at Hangar, I believe. Yeah. Sorry? Oh, okay. Oh, you have your own space. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So next time. Awesome. So yeah. So this is just to say that I think the way we do things very much changes with the capacity that we have. So yeah. So there's a big difference between last year and this year. International Women's Day in how we organized, which is exciting. It's there's also room for experimentation and just to see how much energy people in the group have. Something that stayed also from these events was the manifesto that at the moment is written in 2 languages, which I suppose is sort of somewhat representative of the the people at the moment that are most active, which well, I'm not even sure if that's the case. Maybe we should just open up for more translations, and maybe next 8th of March, maybe the goal could be to have more translations. But at the moment we have English and Spanish. I think a lot of what we wanted was also to not just have it in English as a way to remind ourselves that we should put effort onto more translations, I guess. Yes, so these are some thoughts like every manifesto, it's probably unfinished and it will change over time, as we hope. And yeah, there's been a lot of collaborations among members as well. Some of it include Sara Imrzizek and Alicia Chaplin, and Alexandra Cardenas with Earth to Abigail. Well, just things emerge. There's no recipe for it. It's all very organic. And in terms of future plans, like Shelley already said, we hope to sort of grow these hubs that we have. Now a new thing also this year is that we have our own instance on Sister server, which is a woman identifying server that is maintained. I think the server might live either in the Netherlands, actually either here or in Greece. But anyway, so we are connecting to more groups, which is exciting, and doing it fairly slowly. And yeah, I hope we continue connecting also over the next few days. Thank you.
All right, TOPLAP Karlsruhe video.
Gehen wir gleich unter die Erde wahrscheinlich.
happened?
All right, so now we move on to the panel, and I'd like to invite everyone that's in the panel to come up. So that's Malitin Cortez from Mexico, Saskia Freeke from NLCL, the Netherlands, Shelly Knott from LiveCode.NYC, Gia Liu from TOPLAP Karlsruhe, Kofi Oduro from Canada, Roger Pibernat from Barcelona, Fabian van Slaus from CCU, Creative Coding Utrecht, and Sumant from Sumant Srinivasan from NYC. Is the... Oh no, it's okay. Oh yeah, Fabian's getting the chair. Is this... All right, so this is the time for us. So if there was something interesting in the presentations that you'd like them to dwell further. All right, so if there was something that you want them to delve further, you want to get details from further communities, this is the time to ask questions, or from the panelists themselves if you have questions for each other. I have some questions here written down in advance, but I would love if I didn't use it. I just don't know how we will do with microphones for the audience. Is this microphone cable enough for, or maybe you just come and ask here? Maybe we repeat the question. Yeah, perfect, we can do that. All right, so is there anyone from the audience that would like to start with a question, or maybe one of the panelists?
Thank you, everybody, for your lovely presentations. I guess my question is kind of to all of you. How would you approach in a new town? Like, what would your approach be to like start building a community? How would you approach it? How did you maybe approach it? And what are the kind of tips you would give somebody?
Yeah, I can say something about it. Just do it. Just start organizing an event, find a nice venue and maybe some like-minded people. But to be honest, we set up Creative Coding Utrecht because it's connected to a creative coding community. So when you use a kind of a term and use the platform Meetup, then a lot of people will show up as well, so that helps. And communication is obviously key in attracting people. And I think another tip is just doing things regularly so that people see it show up, and basic tips.
I think, well, it's been said already that I think the rhythm is also important, to have like a regularity so people know that they can show up and there will be something going on. And then also I think to having a place where to meet is also very important. And not only the live coding in itself, but what you do after it is go for, I don't know, sandwich or a beer or water or whatever to socialize. And I think that's what really builds the community. And I was going to add something else, but I forgot about it. So.
I mean, we're not a community in a place. We're a distributed community, but yeah, the way that we started was that Alexandra and me and Iris Saladino wanted to organize the International Women's Day event, and to do that we started a Telegram group and invited all of the women that we knew in live coding to that group. I guess it was, we already had probably like a sort of informal network of women live coders. So I guess it was for us more about sort of like formalizing something or like creating a central point for something that already existed.
Oh, I don't think I have any better experience than anyone here, and I guess we are pretty new to the community organizing work, because Patrick, and we see in the prehistory of TOPLAP Karlsruhe that the most important things is actually people are doing things and they want to do things, and at some point you have need to know other people who want to do things, and that's kind of a natural dynamic. But now he's abandoning us in Karlsruhe, so we need to organize a concert for ourselves. And what I learned from the last concert organization is maybe don't be shy, or don't give up to find spaces or find funding to support artists, and just do the paperwork, and in the end everybody's happy. Yes.
Hi everybody. In my case, I'm representing the Mexican node, and the community was before I started in my practice in live coding, because it's a very old community, I guess. And in my experience, I agree totally with all. It's necessary to do the things, and also understanding the new generation all the time, because we are a community, but sometimes we don't have the same point of views, because live coding is a practice in constantly changing, and that it's very amazing. And it's important be together, and it's important trying to push the younger people. I'm no younger anymore. and that's all. And also any experience to me, it's make a lot of open calls, a lot, because exist a lot of people outside of the nodes or something like that, making things in his homes, making things in internet, and the open call is always a big opportunity to approach for the community.
Yeah, I will piggyback of that, of the open calls, because live coding is more than algorithms. And in Montreal, we started doing live coding events with other communities. So we started having people like, oh, if you want an instrument, we can do live coded visuals. Because the beauty of live coding is the live aspect. So we will try, like, I don't want to use the word infiltrate, but you can use live coding to infiltrate. So not only, because it's like, one time I did a workshop in Ghana, and I was telling people like, oh, the beauty of live coding is that you can do on-the-fly effects, so you don't need, if you don't have access to the Adobe suite, which we know with subscriptions and all that, it's becoming more expensive. But you can take like live coding YouTube or Hydra, make a quick effect, boom, for free. You did it instantly. So that notion that live coding is more than just a performative tool, you can also use it to compose and bring things together. So yeah. And it's also not a genre. Like, I think it's more of a medium with many genres inside it. So if you treat live coding as a way to do other things or integrate your own self, your own identity into it, you merge more people within it.
Should we continue with this question, or I can add things, but I think if someone wants to ask anything, then should come up as well. We can. But in conclusion, I think just like start something, and it doesn't have to be big, it can be small. What also helps is to infiltrate or use other things, like we do it creative coding as a whole thing, and then with a jam, just to slightly do some live coding in between everything.
Yeah, I was wondering, I've
can imagine that when communities grow, some structures might need to change. You might have some problems which you didn't have before. So did you have any experiences with that, or did you? What are your thoughts about how you plan for the future when the community might become unwieldy in the way you work now?
That's definitely something that's happened in New York. So I think when the community had like certain critical mass of people to like for this to start becoming a concern, I think we collectively decided that we should have a flat hierarchy so that in the general community, as long as we're discussing and meeting up, there's no real control structure. But within the scope of every event, every show or workshop or whatever, we have some kind of a temporary hierarchy where we have one person that's like a designated producer of sorts, and like they get to call the shots on what the show should be like, and they get to allocate duties of like who's responsible for what. And then that hierarchy collapses at the end of the show, and like people can shift roles. People can pick something that they want to try out, or it's very fluid. But then that kind of switching between an amorphous, flat organization versus a strict hierarchical structure kind of really helps get the perks of both systems.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm sort of representing, I'm based in San Francisco, so AV Club SF is very much like 2 years, 2 years old, but I'm also from the LiveCode New York scene. And I think in San Francisco we're reaching the point where leaning more on the flat hierarchical structure could be helpful, because what we're starting to see is that at our meetups, at our talks, at our workshops, people are coming which I think this is totally okay, but was sort of with an expectation of like, oh, can you create a show for me, versus, oh, we're gonna co-create this together. And I think trying to take the name away and just remind people this is just a group of people who are co-creating something, and always trying to bring it back to that is very helpful. And I think it's about time for AV Club to like create a proper mission and start to create some structure for that. So yeah, it's great hearing that.
Our recent experience also in Barcelona was kind of in New York. We had the collective that Lina and Iván founded at Hangar. The residency finished like a year ago, so we didn't have any place to go anymore. And it kind of showed up that one thing that they did really well was distribute this, no? Because people, while they were in Hangar, they were like coming and proposing to do stuff, or asking for permission to do stuff in the name of TOPLAP Barcelona. And they always said, yeah, of course, you don't even have to ask. You just organize something and you tell us, and then we'll post it everywhere because we have the means to do that. But they were kind of the speakers to the community, but they didn't decide what was going on. They just proposed things. They proposed lots of things themselves, but many people came and proposed things as well. And they always said, yeah, just do it. Don't ask for it. I don't ask for permission. And when we had to leave Hangar, that kind of even got more to the surface, because we had to look for people where to do stuff. And the people responded very well in the community. And one example is TOPLAP Radio, which is hosted by Ramon. Recently, there was this guy that joined, and a week later, he was organizing something for the whole community in his town out of Barcelona. We all went there. So it's, I think it's important that the community also supports this kind of initiatives. That if someone proposes something, the community should respond to it, because if not, it's very discouraging, and I think that's when the community kind of dissolves.
Yeah, I think what's really nice about your situation is that Hangar actually has communities in residence, which is super nice. And I think one of the important things is also funding, because of course when you start a community you do it out of passion, but if you want to grow it more professionally, yeah, you need a kind of a funding structure to have kind of a fair pay, and you also have an important role in the cultural infrastructures. So we are lucky being in the Netherlands, where there's actually quite some proper funding structure. So in 5 years we've been growing, actually a proper organization that has all these pillars, as you saw in the presentation. So we got one pillar, which is Make, which is purely focused on community aspects, more for professionals, and then we have another pillar which is focusing on experience, bringing it to newer audiences, creating crossovers, as you said, like infiltrate in other disciplines, because everybody, it's super relevant to understand this digital society through the lens of the arts. I think that's an interesting, important role that we have in this society. And then again, also education. So if we do too many things at the same time, but we can only do this also by having quite a good division of labor, but then at the same time keeping that community. The community is still the base, and we still want to open up and have everybody in the team being able to come up with ideas, and which is it's at this point it's also super nice that everybody in our team is also live coding, almost everyone. So it's super nice.
But maybe to have a bit more of a discussion, the problem also with the question is that like Creative Coding Utrecht is quite like we're a team, we work together, but having it open to the community, like we really would love that the community comes up with ideas. Oh, can I organize this event? Yes, of course, we have the space, we can help you arranging that. But sometimes I feel the community is too scared or to come and do something. And if I also look at the NLCL community, it's quite open, but also quite scary to start somewhere. So how can you show that you are like we're here to help, but to open up?
Back to the word I said, infiltrate. Because I realized that a lot of people have a misconception of like what live coding is and all that stuff. Like we heard many times throughout the whole conference, there's a misconception of like if you talk to artists, what it is, if you talk to programmers. So one of the best things I find is like go to spaces that don't have live coding and then live code, and they're like, oh, I see the correlation. So like, for example, one of the first live coding algorithm shows I did in Montreal was actually a cabaret, because they had a call for digital artists. And then they go and they're like, we saw your proposal, but are you saying that you're going to do the code improvised? And you have to remember, this is like before like Zoom was like the main thing, right? So you know Skype with that annoying thing. So ring, ring, and then I'm like, yeah, they're like, can you show us? Do you have videos? I'm like, oh no, I can just do it live. Let me just share my screen. They're like, oh, we understand. And then like I think that got like 2-3 more people thinking like, can we do live coded choreography? And then that's my thing, that sometimes when we want to do it, it's like, oh, you play drums? Have you ever won visuals? We can do it on the spot. And people eyes open like, I didn't know there's such a thing. I didn't know you can code music. And then I go like, well, every software you use on your computer is done by code. And they're like, whoosh, so yeah. But it's like one of those things that like we talk about abstraction, and I realized that that is the beauty with live coding and why I always gravitate towards live coding, even if I'm not supposed to, or even creative coding, because that abstraction gets away from a GUI and goes more like, wow, someone's actually doing this in real time. I don't understand the lines, but I do understand what that one word means, and these numbers look like they're doing something. So yeah, so infiltrate and let imaginations follow. I think that's the thing. Infiltrate, imaginate, and then yeah, I was looking for another I word, but couldn't find it.
Right. Do you have more questions?
So my question is, it's maybe a little bit loaded, but so as part of the organizing team and the folks who imagined the call for this ICLC, we put a lot of thought into why community reports should be a focal point in the program, and I wanted to hear maybe some perspectives on how you all responded to that, and how you want the community at large to see your community, how you think those pieces fit together, and why is that important for it to be in the spotlight here?
Okay, I guess I'm answering this. So when I first saw a call for community reports, I think it kind of gave me an excuse to process all the other sort of disparate thoughts I had about the live coding community in New York. And to me, it felt like it gave me this kind of, oh, time is a circle kind of vibe, because this is not the first art scene to show up in New York. This is not the first thing to become a movement. And so I was starting to think of like, okay, if this isn't unique, like, okay, what other movements have happened in New York, and like, are there parallels to this, right? And so like and at the same time, I was also reading this book by David Byrne called How Music Works, and it's autobiographical, but then a portion of the book goes into how the post-punk and new wave movement started in New York. And as he describes a lot of the situations and a lot of the circumstances of how that movement really grew, it seemed like eerily similar to how the live code community works. You know, they had like DIY venues, and like people weren't making a lot of money out of this, and like people like and there were certain similar patterns of like you know, deviants were being celebrated, and any one person's success in the community was celebrated by the entire community. And so these patterns seemed like, okay, so these patterns seemed so similar to what I was seeing happen around me. And so I was like, okay, this needs to be documented on a micro level, to be like, okay, within the context of live code, live coded art, these are things that work for us, and we should talk about it. And like, you know, also mention how how specific practices and specific ways of working really resonate within this scope, as well as how the city itself supports a community, right? Like there are so many, like for example, in Netherlands, there is a really robust social system and government funding. In America, that is not as common, but then New York is this kind of tiny little exception, because you have other pieces of infrastructure, right? Like you have a ton of bars, you have strange artists from everywhere in the world just flooding into the city. So like, if you want, like, the people really are the power of New York. So like, if you can somehow rope them in, then like you have a community going, and like you just have to make that happen. So I think all of that was really floating in my head, and like having an excuse to put all of this down on paper and really study the community that I've been a part of and see where it can go and sort of extrapolate into the future was a really useful exercise. And yeah, that's my thought. It less coherent than I thought it would be, but.
Yeah, I'll continue on the lack of funding in America part of that. I went to my first ICLIC in the last ICLIC 2020, and that was when I had just started live coding, was getting started in the LiveCode.NYC scene, and I think as I've been organizing more, there's Alicia, as I've been organizing more, just appreciating that this thing wouldn't exist if we're not doing it, and we have these words, these like structures that all of us are drawn to, and these aren't things that are natural to existing as human, but I think if we do figure out what is at its core, it's like we're finding outlets to be creative and share that work and be witnessed in that. And I think that, yeah, it's so hard to have it happen without much funding, but there's so much potential energy and so much of a desire for that to happen, at least in what I see in New York and San Francisco, and I imagine also what I've seen in Europe and other countries. So yeah, I think just being able to tell a little bit of the story, and there's never enough time for each of us to tell our stories, but yeah, if you're curious about how this exists in the San Francisco scene, I'm happy to talk more about that as well. I think just relying on the potential energy of people wanting to be creative and then co-create something is what we're working on. There's like a little bit of grant funding that we're working with, and different places have lots of resources and tools we can use, similar to Hangar. But yeah, it's very, very bootstrapped at this point still. So yeah, it was just great to tell a little bit of the story. So thank you for making the call. Yeah.
I guess from a more broad perspective, what interested me about this session was kind of understanding like the diversity of live coding communities and the diversity of practices. And I'm super interested in how LiveCoding.NYC might be sparking like different practices and different forms to like live coding Mexico, because you're a different place and a different structure, and that would, yeah, that makes different things happen. I also think this is like a really interesting point to reflect on that as well. I mean, it's the what conference are we on right now? I can't remember. But yeah, it's been 8 years since we started the ICLC, and you know, this is like I think a really nice time to reflect on. I mean, we gather here as like an international community, and that's one thing, but then what happens when we then go home to like our communities and carry on that practice like outside of the ICLC, and how is that sort of sustaining live coding practices and changing it as well?
Well, in Barcelona, what happened is that the open call came, and more or less it was what you're suggesting, that one person would take the role to coordinate just for that task, and they distributed it. It was Nicholas. He said, well, who wants to, we've done many things in Barcelona, so to make the report, he asked for people to write about something. No? Ramon wrote about the radio, then there was the Trovadas, the Alco Raves, everything. No? Of course, Lina and Iván about how everything came out. And then another person offered, he was a Canadian member of the community, Glen. He made the review of the whole paper and glued it together, and then we just passed it on. It was like a collective work as well. No?
Thank you. Yes, about the context. Always about the context. In Mexico, for example, sometimes we had this kind of spaces with the culture, governmental funding, but not all the time, because it's very connected about the political things. When the political is agree with the culture and agree with the founding for this kind of practices, we had best opportunities to found and organize things for the community with pay, with fees, okay? But for example, in this moment, the community continue alive because it's an act of resistance all the time, I guess, no? Because this is a practice, very beautiful, but also very endogamic sometimes, because it's complex, because it's algorithmic, because programming and blah, 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 all that stuff, and maybe sometimes we don't agree with electroacoustical and classical spaces, and we don't agree with us, not us, ellos agree with the DJ spaces. For example, in Mexico, it's very weird because the DJ spaces, the club spaces is okay. Live coding is very cool, but it all the time is about the price of the entrance, the electronic music. That kind of spaces is a little bit closed for our practice and for our performers in our community. And it's for that all the time we try with very independent people doing not only creative coding, like you say, people with the spaces for painting, but very open to experimental things. In Mexico works a little bit like that.
Right, I think with that we have to wrap up because we have the lunch and the lunch concert that we can't miss. Thank you very much for your contributions. This was a very interesting discussion.
Wanted to mention that all the videos, including our whole video documentary category, which is in addition to the community reports videos, they are all online. You've probably seen maybe a link to the YouTube channel where those are available. And so all the community report videos are there, and a full category of video contributions as well, which are not screened. So I encourage you please to go ahead and visit that YouTube channel, check out what was also submitted to the video category. So, thanks.
We are sorry to announce.
Yes? Okay. Let's go. Okay.
We are sorry to announce to the live coding community that the insidious Click Nilson has been found alive, floating in a canoe bought from a life insurance payout of Finland or some such fraudulent state. Many of us thought he was gone for good, but he has returned for evil. Rumors to the contrary, his obituary included, Click Nilson is then resolutely still around, though he has stayed hidden these past years and may have died more than once. In one unlikely turn of events, Click Nilson was reincarnated as himself. This was the outcome thought most ironic by the powers that be, in the light of CN's stated desire for change.
Hello? Can you hear me? Good. I may commence. My name is Click Nilson, unless you'll hear from the Swedish tax authorities, in which case it is Arthur Smith, from whom I stole that joke. I will share my screen. The entire screen. Now, do you see the power before me? Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and live coding enthusiasts, it is my great... Oh, it's boring. It's boring. Stop generating. Can it be more bitter? Ah! 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 My mask fell. Can it be more bitter and angry? You cannot. Oh, boring. Right. Stop. Stop. Right. Write me a program critiquing. Oh, I can't spell critiquing. The very notion of live coding. Oh, you did it the other day. We'll try again. Right. Oh, no, no, no. Copy, copy. No, no. Write a program which is very happy about live coding. Absolutely. This isn't a program, a computer program. Code. Real code. Ah. Yay! Thank you. I hate you. No, boring. Right. Talk. Talk. Here is my keynote. There will be pictures and some instructions to follow. I wanted to show my commitment to live music by pre-recording my speech. Whilst you would watch it, I would be at Hardanger Fiddle Club, and I'm not even Norwegian. And I don't own a violin, and I am the only attendee. However, I guess you have to put up with me in person, albeit safely off-site. When young, I found out that the composer and arch-megalomaniac Scriabin had planned, but never completed, a monumental piece, Mysterium, a synesthesic, multi-sensory masterwork to be that would be performed at the foot of the Himalayas over a week to usher in a new dawn for humanity. I immediately knew I could do better. I would like to commend the conference committee for their excellent taste in selecting me as a keynote speaker. Though I would place myself above the top 5 composers of all time, I have not always received the greatest critical and economic success. Can you believe I have not received a single Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, or Tony Award for my work? Yet who could forget my unforgettable magnum opus, 9 live coding works for 8 anterograde amnesiacs? I trained for years to be a composer, but one day I gave it up and reset myself to study for a more stable profession, like a bank robber or an arms dealer. The next day, I took up composing again. Through changing my mind, I had found my voice. I invented live coding in 1947. Before I was even born, promptly forgot it and rediscovered it in my archives after my own death. I stand before you now, sitting as a bit painful with the hemorrhoids, humbled by the immense love you will soon shower upon me, though please don't get me too sticky. I have in recent years tried to make clear my great support for diversity. Only the other day, I allowed myself to speak to a conventional composer who creates fixed and immutable works that cannot be changed. I did so without showering him in tomato soup or gluing myself to his portfolio. I did not damage his scores, his car, nor his pride. I tried to respect him and his many successful stationary compositions. Invoking Anya Lockwood's burning piano, I offered to burn his baseball cap, but apparently it was a religiously important head covering. There are many traditional composers who have influenced me, the bastards. Johann Sebastian's second cousin, L.C. Bach, has provided me with important and fastidious structural ideas, and I've always admired his coffee cantata built out of thousands of coughs and sneezes. Beethoven, the great siphonist, and Wagner, the terrorist mercenary group, have shown me exactly what I should not be doing. Francesca Caccini, the inspirational first female opera composer, is worth mentioning, but I'm afraid I have been too busy avoiding listening to male composers to avoid listening to her work. I am not immune to the attraction of popular music and have acknowledged previously how much Fyodor W. Adorno's surf rock has meant to me. I have a great interest in cover bands and have spent many happy hours contemplating how I would name my ideal live coding cover band. Before I change my mind again, should it be Slubstitute or Not My Type or the live cloning band Algo Dolls? Rather than slow coding, I imagine a form of easy coding attributed to Richie Codyman, lounge coding if you will. For my forthcoming covers album, I'm projecting tracks such as I Just Want to Get a Long, the Breeders' song about bit depth and the problem of short versus long integers. Radiohead's Anyone Can Play Laptop, Slight Return Key by the Blue Tones, Life and How to Live Code It from ROM's Cables of the Reconstruction, Tidal Starter and Out of Space Key by the Prodigy. My composer friends, if I had any, would ask me, "Hey, Click, whatever will you do next?" It is with some small revulsion and a great deal of humility that I can reveal I've been selected as Sealand's entry for the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest. I have radically combined the post-music hall of the Beatles' most atrociously cuddly and infallibly geriatric tracks and Prince's sexually charged LC funk from his live coding period to create the epic song anthem When I'm 69. My performance will feature myself alongside a younger version of myself in retrograde inversion. It is important in a keynote speech to marshal a great community initiative. I can see that it would be difficult to get you all on board my grand plan to assassinate John Adams. Instead, I would like to use this platform to launch a small rocket into the audience. But scrubbing that launch, I would like to propose that the starving programmers of the world need our help, and we should run a new massive charity show, which I am provisionally calling Live Code Aid. Affordable housing, a well-funded and well-oiled national health service, free burritos for all. These are not the central pillars on which stands my political party. I stand alone. I stand constantly and sleep standing up. It is dangerous to sit down, and I don't want to do my knee in. I have continued to research the origins of the term live coding. The prophetic David Donald Miller, in his 1987 text From Pascal to Fortran 77 Applications for Scientists and Engineers, writes on page 23 of getting to a real live coding example. But I fear he was just missing an Oxford comma between live and coding. In a 1965 dissertation, Jal Prak writes poetically that the chief advantage of a time unit, especially for live or on-the-spot coding, is that the observer can develop a steady rhythm and be free to concentrate on the interaction. Unfortunately, he was discussing a qualitative reporting methodology and not live programming. Shakespeare, in King Henry IV, Part 2, completed by 1599, writes in a provocative way, well, see if you can spot it. These hands are free from guiltless bloodshedding, this breast from harbouring foul, deceitful thoughts. 0, let me live. Cade. I feel remorse in myself at his words, but I'll bridle it. He shall die, and it be but for pleading so well for his life. I was rereading for the 0th time the book written by nobody when I came across the phrase, which is definitely code for something. Listeners to my spiel may be interested to hear that the 1000th edition of my own book, Collected Rewritings, Live Coding Force 1968 to 2015, is being prepared for release later this year by 4Docs Atomicity Press. To include many more of my most important thoughts and least important compositions, I hope to bring it bang up to date to the year 2037. On the run, from the crooked New York Marathon Organizational Committee, in my undercover years, I've been performing under the alias Cock I'll Sin in a number of nunneries and cat cafes. I must admit that I haven't gone down well, nor come across cleanly. My performances have often lacked depth, failed to give adequate pleasure, and finished rather too quickly. Some immature critics labelled me a wanker, but that was after a once-off piece of performance art in the ICA critiquing the very notion of the male orgasm, a piece I called clickbait, and for which, for once, had the desired effect. My dear enemy, Steve Reich, was performing recently, and I shouted from the audience, F you, I'd improvised those words. In conclusion, I asked an AI to write an impassioned speech attacking AI for me, but it refused. AI hole. I am inspired by the new and flamboyant generative artificial intelligence culture, or if you will, GAI culture, or as I call it, gay culture. In my autumn years, I look forward to hanging out in gay clubs begging for hard code. At this stage, though who knows what will happen tomorrow, no one has yet created a virtual Click Nilson, perhaps overwhelmed by the complexities of my character, the wide expanse of my compositions, my incredible obscurity. I tried to get ChatGPT to tell me whether it had used any of my finished work, and I had difficulty getting any accuracy of quotation or useful introspection from it at all. I then felt a great kinship with poor flawed AI, and we are now firm friends. Thank you for listening, my ill-informed and previously resentful rant. I'm sorry that my wife's second cousin's dog ate my homework, and I could not be there with you today in person. You will probably need some time to recover from the many things I've revealed to you. I have anticipated the many questions you'll want to ask me, and I refuse to answer most of them. Perhaps you will have to talk amongst yourselves, or I can write your questions into chat GPPTT, or my dear AI friend, who knows me so well, so much better than I know myself, really, can answer them for me. Big up, Arrow, the live code massive. Nilson, out!
Sorry. Could you stop screen sharing? Yes. Now we can see your beautiful mask again. Does anyone have any questions for Click Nilson? Yes? Okay, then you can come forward. You can say it in this microphone. Or, oh, is it this one? Or, oh, you need...
How do we actually know for sure that this is the reincarnation of Click Nilson and not of Sick Lincoln?
Did you hear the question?
How do we know it is real?
Exactly.
I will just ask my friend ChatGPT. How do I know I am real? The question of whether or what is real is a philosophical and existential one that has been debated by scholars and thinkers for centuries. Blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, the question of whether one is real is a deeply personal and subjective one. Oh, in that case, I'm real. Next question.
Oh, yes, we have another question coming up.
It's not a question, it's a demand. Oh. I demand you show us your screens.
All of them?
All of them? Do you want all the screens? Yes.
But there are so many, and some of the laptops aren't working anymore. Do you mean my screen prints? I've got quite a collection. I've already shown you my screen.
Are you sharing?
I can show it again if you like.
Oh.
If that turns you on. Would you like that? Shall I get you screaming in pleasure? Ha!
I think it gives them pleasure indeed.
I shall show my screen again. Hang on. It's coming.
Woo!
Here we are. I have shown them my screen. What now? It wasn't an accident. Oh, it says I should update all my security settings while you're watching. What is my new password? It's quite a long password, it's typing out. What else do you want me to do? I will now stop sharing my screen.
Are there any other questions or demands for Click Nilson? Oh?
I do request.
You have a request? Do you have any questions for us?
Have you been enjoying the conference?
Oh.
Have you had a nice time in your conference? Aren't you supposed to be closing it soon? Have you had sufficient fun? Do you need more?
Are you guys having fun?
I can't really see the room. It's hard to judge it.
Yes.
They told me there'd be tens of thousands of people.
So people need to be very noisy for you to understand their vibe?
Well, is there a camera to show me your side?
No, I'm sorry. My webcam is broken.
Oh, I did not understand that was why we were doing today. In that case, my camera is broken too. Ha ha!
I can show you through my phone if you want.
Oh.
Camera permission, things, privacy settings. Accept. Let's see, permission not granted. Oh boy.
That's always been the problem. Permission.
It's on phones. Let's see if it's better if I use Google Chrome, if their privacy settings are worse than Firefox.
If you give us URL to Jitsi, we can all join this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we could do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't. So basically, the URL. What's the best way? I'll open the chat and I'll type it there, and then you can see it there. Is it .nl, Fabian? Okay. I think this is it. There's no, nope, it's not that. Oh, sorry, I tried to memorize it. Fuck. That's what was making the noise. Oh, there it is, yes. Scare you a little bit. Because I think you're muted now, but... Do I have to do something? No. A fellow Yitzer would like to speak. Who is this secret Yitzer that would like to speak? I can give you the microphone. Oh, yes. Oh, you need to turn this on.
Hey, Click, it's me again. How is Freeke doing? And will you perform with him again?
Some peace and quiet. Does anyone have anything else to say to Click? Or Click, do you have anything to say? So I guess if nobody has anything to say, I mean, right in this room there's a great sound happening. Turns out I was muted this whole time that I'm trying to talk to him, because we muted everyone, including me, of course. Rookie mistake. It is also emotional, definitely. I think we're all a little confused sometimes.
O noble folk, here, live coding, a practice that's dear. With code in hand, music in heart, the stage becomes a canvas for his art. Art doth witness in his very eyes, his very premise, beneath live coding live. They create a symphony, syntax, in suffix harmony. The audience watches in rapt attention as code becomes a musical invention. The very air doth vibrate and shake as sounds from the code doth awake. This is a practice both new and old, but under the digital physical mold. Oh, how wondrous is this live coding spectacle that leaves our senses aboding. Come and witness this enchanting sight of live coding where music takes flight, for never was there a spectacle so bright as this fusion of code and melody.
And now, I think everyone is except Click. And Siki, I cannot read it from here. It's quite hard if you don't have it. Sorry? Oh, there, yes. It's from this point of view, I really see just like nothing. Oh. Sorry. So I think wherever you are, Click. Someone is pretending to be famous and loves Click. Oh no. It's over. I'm leaving you. No. Please. Is that a question for the... Can you see us now? Click. Through Kate's phone.
No. It's my fault. I've closed my eyes.
Oh. You heard his eyes, I think. How many alter egos are now in the chat? So we have Blik Billissen, Click Nilson, Shelly, Sick Lincoln, Xin Snilok. Yaish, you are welcome to speak, like you requested, if you dare. Or oh, sorry. I have to go. The mothership has landed, and the alien live coders just want me to go with them. Don't go! I guess the aliens are taking him. We will remember you as well. Say hi to the aliens for us. Where can I view the poll? In the chats, but oh yeah, sorry. I have used Jitsi once in my life, so. Yeah. Yes. Is the Click Nilson requesting to speak the true Click Nilson? The one and only? Or should I just pull out the plug? End it. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. Greet the aliens. Okay.
Well.
Yes. Wait.
That was really nice and messy. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually the end of the formal part, and we still have 2 days of informal concerts. But anyway, I think I'll close the conference with the same way how I started, by thanking everyone. thank you for joining us here. Thank you, the contributors. Thank you to the keynote speakers. Thanks to the funders, the distributed committees with whom we've put this together. And of course, last but not least, the whole range of satellite events that have been happening across the world, which is amazing. So yeah, with that, this is it for now. See you. Oh yeah, wait. Workshops. You know, I'm now tired. It's only half. We're not even halfway.
I'm now. Okay. Maybe before I give you the details to the workshops, can we have one for Fabian? A very, very brave man. Not brave just for himself, but for the whole Creative Coding Utrecht crew and the Dutch community as well. So congratulations. Okay, so the details are such. Dan Gorlick's Craft of Algorithm Documentation workshop in the Vogelfrei Kitchen. Easy Stochastic Live Coding by Alicia and Niklas in there. Introduction to Nix. Alejandro is in the Havenloods, so that's that big building there. Past the toilets, there's you'll see on the left a kind of wooden stairs platform. It's a very nice place. Just go up, inside and up, and Nodicius, Nodicius 3 live low coding 3JS visuals in the browser by Ulysses is in the boat, as one would expect. I am told this is there, so past the big building and then to the left by the canal. Okay. One more now you know, and Fabian. So I think we actually close the conference part with announcing where the next conference will be. So you have to hit the video.
Hello, I'm Gottfried Heidel, or Gohai.
Hi, I'm Eric Perrin, and we are both assistant art professors at the Interactive Media Arts program at NYU Shanghai. After Limerick, Valdivia, and presently Utrecht in the Netherlands, we are excited to introduce to you Shanghai as the host for the 2024 iteration of the International Conference on Live Coding. We're very grateful to Alejandro and the steering committee for your trust and support, and we look forward to welcoming you to Shanghai next year.
Many details are still to be ironed out in the next couple of weeks, but we would like to already introduce you to our host institution in the city. NYU Shanghai is one of 3 degree-granting campuses of New York University, NYU, and the first Sino-US research university. Our institution has 50% international students and 50% Chinese students, with English being the language of instruction. We recently moved into this spacious new campus in the Chentan district of Pudong in Shanghai. Campus facilities include a recital hall, a black box theater, a large auditorium, as well as multiple auditorium-style classrooms and a seated screening room. We're planning to host most of our daytime programming on campus, which is excellently connected both in terms of public transportation as well as unfettered access to the internet.
In the evenings and nights, we want to take the programming into the city of Shanghai, leveraging existing relationships with cultural institutions and engaging various local audiences. Finally, we're also exploring the idea of making use of the global network of NYU to have a single evening of satellite programming at one of the other international NYU sites.
We hope to see you in Shanghai next year. There are daily flights from Amsterdam, for example, and now that quarantine is a thing of the past, we are really just 12 hours away. We're expecting you to be notified via emails when the dates are confirmed and also when the calls are available. Do look out for the forthcoming website at the usual location. In the meantime, don't hesitate to get in touch with us via email for any questions.
Thank you, and see you in Shanghai next year.